Hello guys, in this video I'm going to be starting my build of this German Panzer II-F from Academy in 1/35th scale. This is a fairly new tool from Academy being released in 2021 and it is the North Africa version of their Panzer II. The Panzer II is one of the few mainstream German vehicles that I haven't built, and it's been a long time since I've built a Afrika Korps vehicle. In fact, I don't think I've built one since I've had my YouTube channel. It's also been a while since I built an Academy kit. Their older kits aren't great, I built a couple of them, but these new ones with the green and black style box art are much better. In fact, I believe Academy supply Airfix for some of their armour models. Looking on the long side of the box there, we have a few shots of the finished model. On the other long side we have the paint callouts, the colour callouts, in a variety of manufacturers' ranges. So looking inside the box and starting with the instructions, we've got full colour instructions, usual warnings and stuff on the front. Inside, this confused me slightly, and to be honest I forgot about this until later. On the inside of the cover we've got steps 14, 16, 22, 3 and 4 for various PE parts. Slightly strange how they're there, but anyway, they are. Step 1 starts on the right hand side and we're building up the lower hull of the vehicle. You can see, a bit like Airfix do these days, they've highlighted in red the attachment edges. That's really helpful as it guides the modeller to know where to put the glue. Over the page we add the suspension arms and then the road wheels in step 4, followed by the tracks in step 5. In step 6 we start to build the upper hull, and at this point we have to choose which of the options we're going to do, and I'll show you those options in a moment. Onto the base of the upper hull go the front and side armour pieces. I'm guessing they're separate because they're probably different on different versions of the Panzer II, and that will allow Academy to release those different versions with minor changes to the sprues. The upper hull goes on with a few extra details in step 11 and step 12. Step 14 sees us putting on the exhaust. And then here in steps 15, 16, 17 and 18, they're slightly confusing. We will only do either 15 and 16 or 17 and 18. They're the same processes there for different options, and essentially those options relate to where the stowage goes. So you can see for the left hand side, step 15 and 16, we have these photo etched jerry can holders, and on the right hand side we simply don't have those. Over the page is very similar, where you have to read which options these instructions relate to and follow the correct ones. That's the same for the next two pages as well, where we add some more stowage. It might seem like it'd be better to have all the instructions for variant 1 in one place and version 2 in another, but there are so many slightly different permutations here, I think that's impossible. To be honest, when it came to building this, I just put the things where I thought looked good. I'm not building a specific vehicle, I just want it to look nice, so I go with what I think works. And if that doesn't agree with the decals in the kit, well, that's okay by me. Over the page we start to build up the turret. It's a very simple structure. There's no apparent option given here for us to have either the turret hatch or the side windows open. You could pose them that way, I guess, although of course there's no actual detail inside either the turret or the hull. Step 30 we have one final option, which is a turret basket, and then we are done with our build. Over the page are our colour scheme options. We get 6 options in the kit and they're divided between 2 paint schemes. One option is the Panzer Grey, which is RAL 7021, with RAL 8000 yellow-brown over the top. And the other option is the RAL 8000 yellow-brown with the RAL 7008 grey-green over the top. And those 2 camouflage schemes represent the first 2 early camouflage schemes that the Afrika Korps used. In the first instance, German vehicles were often sent to Africa in German grey, and they were given improvised camouflage by their crews. So that's the models that you quite often see with the yellow paint heavily chipped away to reveal the grey underneath. Then the first official tropical scheme used by the Africa Corps is that second scheme I mentioned, the 8000 with the 7008 over the top. And that's the yellow brown and the grey green. Later on, both of those schemes were replaced by another tropical scheme used by the German military. So back to option 1. This is the 2nd Battalion, 5th Panzer Regiment, Libya 1941, and that's in the grey-green and yellow-brown camouflage scheme. You can see there we've got that slightly curious decal system where we've got a red 21 which looks like it's been overpainted by that white 05. Over the page we have a very similar scheme. This is the 1st Battalion, 5th Panzer Regiment, also Libya 1941, and it's the same colour scheme, just with slightly different decals. You'll notice here that on the artwork in the colour callouts it doesn't show the differences between the versions, so you won't see any version in here with the jerry cans on the side, even though the instructions show to build some of them with those. Option 3 is another one in the same paint scheme. This time the 8th Panzer Regiment, 15th Panzer Division, Libya 1941. This time with some bright red decals. Option 4 is a captured Panzer II, captured by the US troops, Africa 1943. This is the yellow-brown over the dunkelgrau dark grey. And curiously, it's got the American star, of course, because it's been captured, but it still retains the German cross, which I think would be, well, it's an interesting idea, isn't it? I'm not sure I'd like to drive around in that. You'll also notice this is the option with the stowage basket on the back of the turret. Over the page we're back to yellow, brown and grey-green camo. Unknown Africa Corps unit, Egypt 1942. Slight difference here in that we appear to have some kind of maybe those kill marks on the gun barrel, certainly white stripes for some reason, and the black decals. Finally, option 8, 7th Panzer Regiment, 10th Panzer Division, Tunisia 1943, and this is an all-over yellow-brown scheme. So I feel like Academy have done a decent job with that, considering they don't have a lot of options for Panzer IIs in Africa. They've given us 6 colour schemes and marking schemes which, are differentiated reasonably well. While we're on the subject of paint schemes, let's have a quick look at some archive photos. We're quite lucky in that there are a few photos of that US captured Panzer II, including some original colour photos as you can see here. That looks really interesting, and you can see the dark grey paint there. I'm not sure if that's worn the top coat away to show the grey, or if the grey has somehow been left on to act as a camouflage paint. I'm really not sure. I think this black and white image is of the same vehicle as well. They look like US troops on top there, and if you notice it's missing the gun barrel which it was in the colour photos too. We also have this series of images of the same tank here out somewhere in the desert with a tarp on the rear side, looking like perhaps they're setting up or breaking camp. You can see here very clearly the stowage bins on the side of the vehicle. And in this final image here, which I'm guessing is a captured vehicle again, you can see on the far side at the rear we've got what looks like those jerry can holders. Anyway, long story short, lots of different options, so let's get stuck in with the build. I'm not going to talk too much through the build process, but I will offer a few observations here and there. My first impression, apart from the fact that the lower hull went together really well, is just how small the Panzer II is. I never really realised that, but it fits sort of in the palm of your hand. This is going to look absolutely dwarfed by something like the King Tiger, or even the Tiger, on my model room shelf. The other thing I noticed as I was fitting the upper hull to the lower hull was these gaps at the top of the sponsons, which to be honest are a bit disappointing, and they're a bit reminiscent of the sort of Tamiya kits of old. I remember on my old Tamiya Sherman I had those. Now you could argue to a certain degree that it doesn't really matter because you're not going to have the hatches open, so you're not going to be able to see down through to the ground. But it just seems a bit odd for a modern kit to do that. The idler wheels I think are a nice combination of detail and simplicity. Just two parts, the main wheel and this outer ring. I had to do a bit of a double check when I saw the drive sprockets because I didn't think they could possibly be just a single wheel, but it turns out they are. There are some quite prominent eject pin marks on the inside of those. They may well be hidden by the tracks, but I think in reality I need to fill those in. The small return rollers were a particularly bad fit. When I put them in place like this, they were so wobbly that I thought I must have done something wrong. But I used a couple of track pieces to make sure they were the correct distance from the hull, and in fact they are. So it's just that the fit is really loose, as you can see here. It's easy to have them not parallel to the sides of the tank. I do like the road wheels though, and the fact that the inside face of them fits inside the other piece, so we don't have that ugly seam line going all the way around the road wheel, which we do on a lot of kits. Academy give us some string for the tow cable and these tiny eyelets for the end. I was going to replace the string with some metal wire that I have. However, the wire is far too big for these tiny eyelets. I didn't want to use string though, so in the end I did use this copper wire, which I had left over from something earlier. I know it's not twisted like a proper tow cable, but I still think it's going to look better than the string. That was bent to shape and then glued in place with some super glue. Here we come to the options in the instructions that I mentioned earlier, and because I like to make my life difficult by folding photo etch, I went for this configuration here. This apparently only relates to option 1 in the painting schemes, but I don't really care that much about that. I just think the jerry cans look cool on the side. That said, I do think I need to invest in a photo etch bending tool because I really struggle to bend this. It's quite thick photo etch. And as you can see from my final result, I ended up more with curved corners than square corners, unfortunately. I do like this single piece assembly for the vision blocks on the turret. That really cuts down on the fiddliness, and because it drops out from the bottom I can keep that separate, paint it and then put it in at the end. Although there isn't an official way of keeping these side windows open, I figured that in Africa all the pictures I've seen they've been open, so I just glued them in at 45 degrees. I also quite like the look of the stowage basket on the back of the turret, so I fitted it even though strictly speaking it's only on one of the options in the instructions. And there we go, there is the final Panzer II ready for primer and paint. You'll notice that I've left a few things separate. So of course the turret is completely separate for painting, and that vision block is, as I mentioned already. The jerry cans, of course, are not glued in place. This radio mast protector, I guess you would call it, is also separate, simply because it's going to be really hard to get the airbrush around behind that to the side of the vehicle. So I will leave that till the end before adding it, and the aerial itself will be left to the end. Here are the mudguards which I mentioned earlier. I will prime and paint these on the sprue and then add them once the tracks have been added. And of course all of the wheels except for those tiny return rollers have been left separate for easier painting and weathering. So guys, that was a quick look at the 2021 release of the Panzer II from Academy. I hope you enjoyed that. Quite a short video today because the subject I was going to show you was a conversion of the Tamiya B192 to the Pacific PR01 F1 car. Unfortunately I put down the Tamiya TS13 gloss coat on it ready for the decals, and for some reason it yellowed immediately. So it's kind of messed that one up. Luckily I suppose it was before I put the decals on, not afterwards, because those decals are as rare as hen's teeth. But it did mean I couldn't show you that today. Nevertheless, I hope you enjoyed this video. I will leave you with a shot of the ever creeping towards the finish line Spitfire. And my thanks for watching this video, with extra special thanks to my YouTube members and Patreon supporters. The usual options, commenting, liking, subscribing, disliking, unsubscribing, are all available below the video. So until next time, thank you again for watching and have fun modelling.